Alright guys, hello. So here today we have a gorgeous 1970s Marantz Model 5000 tape deck. It's coming as repairs, exactly the same as my usual stuff. It came from eBay, and as you'll notice there is some of these covers missing from the buttons. I only have two, and there's three missing. So one of the first jobs is going to be to work out what I'm going to do with this. I think what I might do is remove this one from the record button because it's red, and then put all the black ones with silver tops, and the red one maybe work out, maybe I can make one or fashion one or something. But the seller just said it doesn't work. It was a very basic advert. It's in surprisingly good nick compared to some of the ones that I've received and seen. So I'm going to have a bit of a play with it. I've plugged it in and see what we do. But the quality of it is very nice. There's a lot of feedback on these knobs, and these switches are nice and chunky. So let's power it up. Beautiful blue lights on the VUs there, and I'm going to pop a tape in. I've already tested the reset button. But pretty basic 70s tape deck. It's a bit of a funny size. I think it's designed to be put in a rack. It has a little bit of a overhang on the left and the right and the top. It's a shame that the top's not wood, but it's black. So it kind of is what it is. So I've actually preempted a little bit and picked up a nice set of belts. So that's good. And somewhere I've got a tape, so I'm gonna stick a tape in, see if we get anything at all. It's a lovely slow release cassette dollar that actually goes up to there and then pushes in. That's quite satisfying. So let's see what works and what doesn't. Nothing, and nothing. So the seller, I think he said the description was kind of probably needs belts, and that's as far as it got. So I'm going to take the top off and we'll see what the inside looks like. So inside is actually a lot higher quality than a lot of the 70s stuff that I've found, to be honest with you. It's very clean, very tidy, you know, even down to the way the wires are all set up and things like that. It's very nice. No real signs of any major issues that I can see on the boards. All from initial inspection, all the caps look pretty good. None of them have overheated and stretched and things like that. So we'll have a look at the transport. Right, so straight away you'll notice, let's get a poking stick on the transport then. So our secondary belt there is broken and looks extremely gooey, and there is no primary belt on the capstan, or there is a remnants of it. So there's our starter for 10. Everything else looks in pretty good order. It seems like it may be a relatively simple one to open up. It might not need to remove the entire transport, but we'll also have a look at the greases and oils and things and see what else needs servicing in there. But it looks like we can get to the primary capstan belt from these two screws here, and we can remove this motor from 4 or 5 screws on the outside. So let's get on and do that and see if we need to peel or unglue this belt. Alright, out of all the tape decks I've done in the last couple of weeks, this is a pleasant surprise. There is remnants of belt everywhere. So this secondary wheel has a remnant belt on it. There is pieces of belt down here. There's a piece of belt there. There's a piece of belt there. There is most of a belt still remaining on the main capstan there. So when you get that off, this is also this is goo, so this needs to be cleaned off properly. And what's interesting is it's also all around the motor. And if I just zoom in on the motor a little bit there, sorry, then the motor actually drives both belts. So it drives the main capstan belt on this one and the secondary smaller belt off this part of the pulley here. So all these belts need to come off, and then once I get that cleaned out, I'll be comfortable enough to go anywhere near it with another belt, and then we can look at re-greasing the transport and things like that. Right, so what I'm going to do now is everywhere I can see a sliding surface, I'm going to give it a really good clean up, and then we're going to apply some new silicone grease to where the contacts meet, the meeting surfaces, should we say. So all of this, get all this old grease off and crap and grime, and then when we put some new grease on, it's going to go somewhere clean. This is just a bit of a basic service on this one. I'm not going to take the whole transport apart for the sake of the belts, but once we give it a test, if we find there's any issues, then we can perhaps go forth and do what we need to do. All these little contacts down here, clean them up with some IPA. They've got IPA on the end of here. Look at that, beautiful. And then we're also going to oil any bearing surfaces or bushes, as some people decided to point out on Facebook to me recently, which was nice of them. And then I've taken your advice and produced a tripod as well. See how that goes. So a couple of dabs of oil on our pulley axle, and also into our motor bushing, just in there. Which is good for wow and flutter, so I've been told. And then it is a case of getting some grease and getting it on all these surfaces we can see that move about. So we've got some Molykote DX, which is grease for mechanical systems. And we're going to apply a liberal dose to all these places that require it. Not too much, not too little. All right. I'm gonna have a little bit of oil in there. And now I think it's time for belts and remounting that motor. And then once this is on, it's just a case of cleaning up that capstan, sticking the capstan back on with a bit of oil. We'll clean the end of it, and then we will, this one's already mounted now, and this one's just basically sat there on the pulley waiting for the capstan. Alright, so they're in, so 1, 2 and 3 down there. That's the motor now remounted, and we can look at putting this capstan back on and thread it over the top of that belt as we put it on. First we get the deep joy of taking this off as well and giving this a good clean, and then I usually put a little bit of sandpaper over this end here where it's going to grab the tape, some real fine sandpaper. Alright, that took some doing actually. That had fully turned to like the most horrendous substance known to man. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit of oil on the shaft, and then, but what we are going to have to do is, if I can find my oil, once we get this into the transport, we're going to have to IPA and clean up the end because it might have a little bit of oil on it. So I'm just going to give this a little bit of an oil in there, and then without getting it on the belt, I'm going to attempt to somehow get this in there, which I'm going to have to go this way for it. And once the belt's on, we can simply move the pulley to where we need it to be without damaging the belt, hopefully, he says. I have to move this wire out of the way. Oh, forgot the little bushing. Drop the little bushing now. And then get this, if I can see, into there. No, that failed. Right, let's try that again. keep the tension on the belt at the same time as doing this. This probably would have been easier to just take the transport off, if I'm honest with you, but you know, for the sake of a simple belt swap, everything else is in extremely good order. I think we will suffice with what we have. Like so. Looks good. Right then. So now it's time to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this up with IPA, and then I'm going to refit this bushing, clean this out as well, and give this a good liberal dose of oil in there. Can only do it some good. Let's come out pretty clean. Give that a bit of a dry, and then we can drop some oil in there, a little bit on the shaft, and we should be that's a little bit too good at spinning around. Right, stick these screws in. Right, as if by magic the screws are in. So this one and this one was a bit of a pain in the ass actually. There is a bracket down here which is your recording cut-off switch activator when you press the record button. I had to remove that. So I'll just pop that back in like so. And right, so I need the gubbins in order to get that bottom screw out. I had to remove this this bracket, and this is the activation arm for your recording cut-off switch, which is this long switch here. This needs a bit of deoxit spray, which I'll get in a minute, but this is grease, so I'm just cleaning the old grease off, and there where it attaches as well, and get all the old crap off it, and then we'll re-grease that before we refit it. I think that's, there you go. You get all this off because that is minging. There we go. Give it a bit of a dry. I just got IPA in a cut on my thumb, which isn't fun. And all this bush down here as well. Let's get all this grease and crud off. Because who knows the last time it was serviced? Could have been never. Right. So get that dry before we put any more grease on it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grease just here and around here as well, which is the arm, where the arm sits. And now this should sit in place. Like so. And then there is a circlip that will hold that in place. Perfect. Now if you can just see down there, I need to reattach this spring into this hole here on the arm. if I can actually get to it. Right, hopefully you can still see that. It's not easy to get to, if I'm honest with you. There we go. I just noticed something while we're in here as well, actually. I've just oiled these two wheels here because this is an absolute thing of beauty. This is the soft close mechanism for the eject. So when I press eject, watch these wheels. Oh, and this is simply controlled by what looks like radio spring, if I can just turn it around a little bit. Radio string, sorry. The string comes from the door and it's controlled by a spring, so when I shut it, the spring sucks it back up and down. That's it shut. Now watch this. Man, that's satisfying. I'm happy with that. Right then, so it was a really quick one. I'm going to do a functional test now. And once we've done a functional test, I just want to see how it plays, how it works, how all the buttons work, if everything does work here and there. And then we can go through and we can clean all the switches. We can deoxit all the where the contact pads are for the recording mechanism and things like that. And we can do any more final adjustments we need to, speed, levels, as per the service manual. Right then, so we've got our belts installed. Let's do a bit of a test and see where we get. So we've got power, and we're very careful because the 70s machines aren't known for electrical safety inside. VU meters are spinning up good. Let's stick a tape in. Maybe needs a little bit more grease, actually, that. I might have to take that off, it's a bit too... Is it too slow? No. What we've got, no idea what's on this tape. Let's fast forward. Works a treat. Stop. Rewind. Works a treat. And the all important one. So levels are very low. Could be the tape. So now I know it isn't going to chew a tape and this is all working. I think I'll get a better recorded tape and see if we get some decent levels out of it. I really hope it doesn't chew this because this is one of my favourite tapes. It should have decent levels on it. It's halfway through the tape as well. And it's of the era, so levels are a lot better. I'm not entirely convinced that they are. It should be up to the Dolby logo, really, I'll be honest with you. If you can just see it on the camera there, the levels are still peaking quite low, so maybe we need to do some electrical adjustments. Let's try the other side of the tape. Yeah, perhaps the levels are a little bit low, to be honest with you. Whether that's an electrical adjustment inside. We haven't cleaned the heads or anything yet, so that's probably something I can give it a go of. So let's give the heads a clean and see what it looks like then. And a little bit on the recording head there. It's actually pretty clean in here. Who knows the last time it was used, but it is pretty clean. This is obviously unplugged at the moment as well. Alright, so what I've done is I've removed the faceplate from the cassette deck, and I've removed and replaced these two wheels. And basically, this one's on with a circlip, this one's on with a screw, and cleaned all the grease out, re-oiled the axles, and made sure they're all nice and clean and lubricated. And I got a bit worried actually, because once I did it, it still wasn't ejecting all the way. You know, there was nothing else it could be. It simply wasn't ejecting all the way. And then I realised that this thing weighs about half a kilo. So if I were to put that, just sit it on, it clips on and off with the usual plastic clips. If I were to put this off and on, it ejects perfectly. So that's another thing sorted. So it needs that weight. Pretty nifty. Right, so I've cleaned all the heads, and the pinch roller has been renewed. Just popped a new one in there now. So let's test the levels out on this tape again. Alright, so I've given all the heads a clean, I've cleaned everything out as best I can, and I have a second solution, appetite for destruction. If this doesn't get the VU meters dancing, then I don't think anything will, but at least it'll give us a good guide as to how close we're getting to the 100 at the bottom percent, I imagine, and our 0 dB. Interesting, the Dolby logo is at +2 as opposed to 0. So let's try this. Yeah, loads better. They're both in sync, they're both reaching the same values. Head clean, save the day. Actually, I think the angle of my camera is making it look like it's going higher than it is. Obviously, once we... it seems like we've ended up with a break in the song there, so I'll just fast forward a little bit more. There we go. I'm happy with that. A lot happy with that. Okay, so I think next thing to do will be our electrical measurements, azimuth correction, and a check on the oscilloscope, and then we'll do a speed test and play some music. Right, and so in the service manual, as usual, we've got all the instructions for adjustments, play time in there, play torque. Oh, there's a good one, tape speed, we need that one. Obviously on the back of the motor there. So what we're looking for is azimuth adjustment to find out which screw on the head we need to turn for adjusting the azimuth. So in the electrical adjustments bit, traditionally it's line 1, head azimuth adjustment. There we go. So, and it tells you all the states you need to be in and what you need to do. So it's saying you have to have it turned on, and you have to play a 10 kilohertz tone through it in playback mode, and there is the screw we need to adjust in order to adjust the azimuth. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to check the levels and the azimuth coming out of the recorder. So we've got our oscilloscope set up, and we have our left channel on this side and our right channel on this side. And this is just a bog standard RCA cable coming out the back into our oscilloscope. We've got it in XY mode, and the time division and whatever else and voltage division is set to 0.5. What we're going to do is we're basically seeing if the azimuth of the head is giving us the same frequencies out of left and right channel at the same time. So we have to play a 3000 hertz tone through the test tones tape that I've got there. I'm going to play that, and it'll come out on the oscilloscope. And basically what we're doing in XY mode, you're combining the left and right signals, and if they're both the same, you'll get a straight diagonal line like that. If they're not the same, you get a circle. So all you need to do is play the tape, see what the oscilloscope says, and if it's not a circle, we need to adjust the azimuth until we get that diagonal line, or as close as we can for a 53-year-old tape deck. So I'm going to rewind the tape, and this is 3000 hertz. So as you can see, we've got an almost diagonal line, but it's mostly circular. Okay, the movement of it is wow and flutter, which there's not a lot I can do about at the moment. Maybe we could do a little bit more cleaning the capstan and stuff, and have a look at the pinch roller. But what we're going to do is I'm going to adjust the azimuth screw, which is a left hand screw to the head, which we just looked at in the service manual. And as I turn it, you'll see on the screen that this will turn into a line as opposed to a circle. So that's the theory. So keep an eye on the oscilloscope as I find the correct screw. And I'm going to turn this, hopefully in the right direction. It's 50-50. That's the wrong direction, so I'm going to go back that way. And we should see it starting to form a line. There we go. It's still flapping about a little bit, so I'll just do a little more. I think we're going too far. Alright, so the opening and closing the line is the movement of the frequencies as they're coming out of the tape. And that could be the quality of the tape, it could be the cleanness, quality of the heads. At this level, this kind of flapping about won't really be that noticeable to the human ear. Some people, if they have a 20 grand machine or whatever else, they might notice it, but that level of adjustment as it's going in and out, you're not particularly going to hear it too much. But we want to try and do the best we can with it at least. So let me just, I don't know if you can see the top of my head there, nothing else. Let me see if I can just adjust it a little bit more. No, the other way. Obviously as you press on the screw it moves the head. So we also need to try and, that's better. As you can see, that's keeping more of a straight line as best as possible now. So I would suggest that that is as best as we're going to get out of this deck. What we can also check at the same time is the levels on the meter. So this tape we know is recorded at a certain volume of decibels. Just to get the... So we can also calibrate our VU meters against the decibels on the tape. So the tape is recorded at 0. And if you look at that, the left channel is good, the right channel is a little bit down on there. So we can increase the right channel volume as well. But then once we do that, if I find the play level right, once we do that, if we can play it, we can maybe increase the play level right just a touch to reach that 100. Because I know that this tape is correctly recorded at that level. So it's just... In fact, I think that's just playing the meters, if I'm honest with you. It is kind of moving about in the meters. These are analog meters, don't forget, responding to voltage as opposed to a digital. I'm actually happy with that. So I'm happy with that. So now what we've got is we've got our azimuth set up, we've got our VU meters set up, our play level set up. So now it's time for a speed test. And we should be good. The tapes I've played on it sounded fine. So I think we're pretty close to what we want. So our speed adjustment for the motor on this is at the back of the motor. Is actually underneath the sticker. It took me a while to work out that it was under there, so I've had to damage the sticker to get into where the potentiometer is inside there. But I'll remove this completely and then we'll put some tape over the top there to keep dust and grime and whatever else out. But we're going to do our usual tone playback, and then I'll be using a screwdriver in there to adjust the motor. The thing I don't like is that right, and if we can zoom out a little bit, right opposite is just here 240 volt power supply. Right there is 240 volt and right there is 240 volts. So what I'm going to have to try and do is I'm going to use an insulated screwdriver, one of these bad boys, and I'm going to use this to adjust the motor simply because I don't want to be electrocuted. Which has happened in the past, so safety is key with this, because obviously you need to make this adjustment while the deck's playing and powered up. So that's what we'll go do now. Alright, so I'm all set up, and as you can see I've got Spectroid running. The spectrum analyzer at the bottom will show, if you notice at the top of the screen, 0, 10, 100, 1000 and 10,000 hertz. You're going to get a line there when I play the tone. And from that we can adjust the motor and we'll see what's going on. So I'm going to play the tape. The dog hates this bit, so if you've got a dog, just tell him it's fine. Tell him it's me messing about and he'll understand, I imagine.
Speed calibration tones. 3,000.
Here we go. Alright, 2930, that's coming out. See that line as it goes down, that's the timeline. So 2930. So I'm going to adjust this now. He says. Try that again. Alright, let's try that again because I didn't have my screwdriver lined up. Here we go. And get my screwdriver into the pot. 3000. Absolutely on the nose. Make sure you take your screwdriver out because it could be messing with the tone. So 3000 on the nose, speed's perfect. There you go, your dog can relax now. Alright, so brings us to an end of another video there. This was pretty straightforward and simple, simply because the ease of being able to replace those belts and perform a basic bit of servicing and lubrication on the deck and the movement just meant you didn't have to pull the entire transport out. I appreciate that I could have pulled the entire transport out, you know, and tested all the capacitors and all the rest of stuff, but the most important tool I have is my ears. And if it sounds good, then I'm happy it sounds good. What I have done is I've ordered a little bit of 1mm aluminium. I've had a look around for some of these button tops and no success, you know. There's a lot of these decks that seem to bring quite high prices once they've been serviced and cleaned up. Let's balance that because it's going to annoy me otherwise. And so nobody's really looking at pulling some of these off so that I can get myself a new part, you know. So I might do a little bit of a video in the future of trying to create one of these, but I think this deck's maybe a keeper for myself just because I like looking at it. The VUs and everything are quite pretty on it, and it seems to do its job quite well. One point I will make is when we're doing our azimuth checks and speed checks and level checks, everything is that these bias are all set off and Dolby is off, and that's important for every deck really. So nothing left to do really but play a bit of royalty-free music through the Marantz and give it a bit of a test. With these VU meters, so I know the levels are right through the oscilloscope, so I'm going to just do basic meter adjustment on a tape I know plays at the correct Dolby level and balance out the meters to where I want it to be. So let's go ahead and do that as a final thing. So on the board we have two potentiometers, which is here and here, and these are for balancing out and calibrating your VU meters. Now if you look at those two are way off similar. So I'm going to give them a bit of an adjustment, play a tape that's a factory stock tape that's playing at 0, and let's get them how we want them to look. Alright, what I've done then is gone back to Guns N' Roses. So because I know our levels are calibrated correctly through the oscilloscope, the VU meters simply need adjusting as it is. And as you look at that, left is way lower than the right. So I'm going to go first and adjust the left, and I'm going to try and get it to peak at 0. If I can just get my screwdriver to go into the right, so that's me turning up the left one now. As you can see, it's coming up, and what I'm looking for is it to peak at 0, not at Dolby, because on this for some stupid reason Dolby's at +2, which may be correct, I don't know. That's a bit high, I think. That's not far off. I think, well, I mean, this is more of a visual aid, and obviously it aids in recording as well, still a little bit high. So I'm just going to calibrate this down just a little bit more. This is not easy to do, actually. It's like they don't want you to do it. So I'm going to go get a smaller screwdriver. Okay, so I'm still working on the left one here. I'm just going to turn it down a touch. It seems to be a little bit, yeah, that's peaking. Still about +1/2. Because you also want to see the meters do the thing, you know, when you're watching, listening to music and whatever else. So that's peaking at exactly 100 down there. I'm happy with that one. So I'm going to move on to the right one. And these two pots are actually very close to each other now. So if I match the pots visually, that's actually matched the VU pretty closely. And knock the right one down just a touch. And that is the one at the back of the board. Oh, we've ended up with a track change there as well. Let's fast forward it while Slash just gets warmed up. There we go. So that right one's still peaking a little bit high for me. I'm just going to knock it down a touch. And they're both matching as well, you know. That's what we're looking out for here. There we go. And this one's now peaking at 100. Not going past 100. Perfect. Happy with that. So let's try that stock tape again that's got no rotors on it, because Slash will be phoning me if I play this. Alright, I'm going to turn my amp back on now. So let's try this royalty-free tape again. Because if you're not happy while the top's off, you might as well get it correct. And let's move around a little bit so you can see the VU meters. Hopefully this should look good. Alright, that looks a lot better actually. I think I'm happy with that. I won't play the audio just for the sake of the fact that I've since found out that this royalty-free music isn't royalty-free. And it just fires a copyright claim towards any of my videos, so hopefully I can work that out and, you know, see what I can do with it. I think Google has some royalty-free music that's proper royalty-free music, and I can get that recorded, and because I like to demonstrate it actually playing to you, just for the satisfaction of it. But I'm happy with those meters there. That's good. Alright, so the smell of warm capacitors has filled my dining room now. I love the smell of essentially the 70s. I think we're done. So that's it, finished. I'm going to put a top on this, button it up, and just give it a few life cycles, you know, stick some tapes through it, and just give it a bit of, get some warmth through it and some power, get it warmed up and sorted, and then decide what to do. I'll probably fire another video on showing what I do with this button cover. But for now, I think I made the right choice by having the red one just red, you know, and because I don't have another choice really. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed me using a tripod, as a lot of people decided to tell me. And I agree actually. In my original videos, the first couple of videos, you know, me running about with a phone in my hand isn't what a lot of people want to see. So hopefully the improvements show. All right, have a good day, guys. Bye.